алейкум, Жума Мубарак. Спасибо всем за ваше участие, за ваш интерес к теме исламских финансов. Мы рады приветствовать вас всех на сессии по корпоративным исламским финансам. И хотела бы немножечко сказать о пожарной безопасности. Да? Не забываем, что выходы находятся там C3 и C3-4, также где кафетерий «Зебра». Вот. Кроме того, хотели бы поблагодарить наших спонсоров Visa, Freedom Broker и Казмиралс, а также всех тех, кто нас сегодня поддержал. Вот. И let's start with our session. I'm happy and it's honor to have here our honest speakers and especially our moderator. So our moderator is today is CEO of Amani Advisors Global Office, Ms. Maya Marisa Malek. Maya is a managing director and CEO of Amani's Advisor Global Office based in Dubai. She is a multiple award-winning Islamic finance expert and executive leader. She is also recognized as top 50 most influential women in the Middle East finance by Financial News UK of Dow Jones Group. So please welcome our moderator, Ms. Maya Marisa Malek.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good afternoon everyone. It is my honor to be here alongside the esteemed panelists for today's session. Thank you to AIFC and all that have been involved in organizing this Astana Finance Days. Inshallah, everything will be a resounding success. So if I can invite the esteemed panelists to come on stage and join me. We have Dr. Muhammad Amin Ali Khatan, who is a Sharia advisor and Sharia scholar based out of Kuwait. We have Mr. Mirlan Taimur Zaif, the Managing Director of Alif Islamic Bank. Welcome. We have Mr. Fahim Ahmad, the President of Strategic Planning and Global Relationships at the Islamic International Rating Agency, based in Bahrain. We have Mr. Akbar Khan, Acting CEO, Al Rayyan Investment. And last but not least, Mr. Arman Batayev, CEO and co-founder of Harry Kelm Babsman. So thank you everyone for your time. For today's session, we will be talking about, or we're going to do a deep dive in relation to strategic growth Islamic finance solutions for the corporate sector. Before we start, I will allow the panelists to have maybe 1 minute to introduce themselves, starting with Dr. Khatan, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Muhammad Qattan. I'm based in Kuwait and traveling between GCC countries and all over the world. My area is Islamic economics as well as Islamic finance and banking and finance, takaful as well. I've been teaching in academic area for a long time as well as in private and public investment companies and banks. Welcome.
Ассаламу алейкум рахматуллахи ва баракатух. Добрый день, уважаемые участники конференции. Меня зовут Мирлан Таймурзаев. Я представляю Alif Islamic Bank. Alif Islamic Bank – это первый и на сегодня единственный действующий исламский банк на территории Международного финансового центра Астана. Мы первый, но думаю, что из присутствующих есть люди, которые о нас слышат впервые, поэтому хотелось бы несколько слов рассказать о нашем банке. В конце 2022 года мы завершили все процедуры, связанные с регистрацией банка и получением банковской лицензии. Через 3 месяца мы начали операционную деятельность. Мы относительно молодой банк, нам чуть больше года. И согласно полученной лицензии мы можем осуществлять, во-первых, исламское финансирование, во-вторых, мы можем привлекать ограниченные инвестиционные счета, осуществлять банковские платежи и переводы, обменные операции и, наконец, открывать и вести банковские счета. Для нас большая честь выступать на такой авторитетной площадке с лидерами исламского рынка. Это наше первое выступление. И хотелось бы выразить отдельную благодарность организаторам данного форума и особенно Мадине Тукуловой за возможность участвовать в этой сессии. Сегодняшняя панельная дискуссия – это еще один шаг в сторону разработки решений, которые помогут корпоративному сектору. Поэтому надеюсь на интересную и продуктивную дискуссию. Спасибо.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Maya, and thank you everybody for being here. It's great to be back in Astana and see so many familiar faces. My name's Akbar Khan. I'm the acting chief executive officer of a company called Al Rayan Investment. We are based in Doha, in Qatar. I've been involved in the investment industry for more than 25 years. Initially, I was in Deutsche Bank in London. For the last 15 years, I've been in Doha at Al Rayan Investment. We do two things, two focus areas for Al Rayan Investment, or ARI as we call it. One is asset management, where we're investing clients, institutional, individual clients, money across public markets, equities, and credit, sukuk. Everything we do is Sharia compliant because Al Rayan Investment is owned by the second largest Islamic bank in Qatar, called Masaf Al Rayan. So all of our asset management activities are Sharia compliant. And the other part of our business where we work with a lot of corporates is on the investment banking side. So we're very active on helping them to raise capital, whether that's equity capital by listings or IPOs on the local stock exchange in Qatar. And also we work with issuers in Qatar and the Gulf and globally on helping to raise debt capital, so the issuance of sukuk. And this is predominantly in US dollars. And so we work with as I mentioned, a number of issuers across geographies. The most recent transaction we did was with Warba Bank in Kuwait, where we were one of the joint lead managers on their sukuk, which was the first ESG sukuk in Kuwait. So there's a lot happening in this space, and this sukuk industry globally has been growing very rapidly, and hopefully we can talk a little bit more about that as the session goes on, but it's now it's a $1 trillion industry, or $1 trillion asset class globally. I'm only mentioning that because sometimes people think that sukuk is a small, not a real asset class. It's come of age. But thank you so much for having me.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Fahim Ahmed. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers here to inviting me in this beautiful city. Allah bless the city. I am the founder of many rating agencies across. I started my work in 1991, last century. And the biggest achievement is to create this Islamic International Rating Agency in Bahrain with the help of 18 Islamic banks and Islamic Development Bank. As you know, the rating agencies are a very essential part. As brother just mentioned, that they have issuing sukuk, so you will look at many ratings coming out because that's very essential to get the valuation. So maybe we will discuss more on what is our work and how we are addressing this Islamic niche and the Sharia compliance on the debt securities and also sukuk and the entities we rate. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Arman Batayev. I am a founder and a CFO of Hurricane Bosman Asset Manager. So I started my career actually as auditor in EY in KMGP, and also I worked as BD deal sourcing in AIFC. So after AIFC, With my partner, we established a consulting firm and asset management firm. And in asset management firm, we have right now 2 funds. First is hedge fund, and second is PE fund. For both of our funds, actually, we try to comply with Sharia, and we market them as ethical and environmentally sustainable funds. So we try to invest only in such kind of companies and shares.
Okay, thank you. Alhamdulillah, we have a good mix of learned colleagues from different spectrum of the industry. So inshallah, we will have an engaging discussion. Before we start with the questions, let me set the context. First, I want to raise or highlight 3 points, basically. So one is in relation to Islamic finance. Islamic finance is actually more than just elimination of interest. It seeks to build new economy, a more sustainable, a more ethical economy with a set of principles that's not new, but is newly reintroduced. So these principles have been around for more than 1,500 years ago, right? So we are reintroducing this new set of principles to create new enablers and new tools to form a very strong and solid alternative to mainstream finance currently. And I think the growth of Islamic finance for the past 50 years has shown that it has a very influential trajectory. It can create a lot of impact in the industry, so long as we use the principles of Sharia in the correct manner, right? Even then, Davos, the World Economic Forum in Davos last year, I think in the report, one of the key objectives is actually to boost productivity through ethical and sustainable activities, which actually translate into how activities or how Islamic finance is being carried out under the Sharia, the principles of Sharia. And right now, it's actually a very good time to be part of the Islamic finance industry. Why? Because we have evolved. There's more consistency in terms of the products, the contracts, the legal documents, the legal framework, regulatory framework, etc. Obviously, in different jurisdictions, it's an emerging market for Islamic finance, so you cannot start with one aspect or one segment. So we need to find what segment of Islamic finance that can work and then move from there. And the more important thing to note that is that Islamic finance is not just for Muslims. I think that's very important. Islamic finance is a commercial law. It's about commerce. It's about economic activities in a different way. So we need to make the implementation and the development of Islamic finance, Islamic economy, easy and smooth. So it's supposed to be facilitative instead of, I think there's a lot of certain misconception that probably we'll discuss in the panel, that it's complex, it's expensive, etc. So this is some of the misconception that we need to address in order for Islamic finance to be on a level playing field, so that it gives better choices, better alternatives for the consumer and the client. So secondly is in relation to the growth of Islamic finance. Akbar mentioned Sukuk. Just Sukuk is a 1 trillion market. So the whole Islamic finance industry that's on record is close to $5 trillion in terms of size. Personally, I think this is a very conservative amount because it only takes banking and the Islamic capital market into consideration. We have not looked into the private markets, the size of the private market. So for the past 8-9 years, personally, I have been involved in many private market strategies and transactions, especially being offered by conventional asset managers. And the size is huge. So 5 trillion, 4.55 trillion is actually very conservative. And there's also the trajectory or the estimated growth by 2027 that is going to be close to 7 trillion. So this is something that we cannot not be a part of. This is something that we cannot just put aside and overlook. The size is big, and it's going to be mainstream, soon. So thirdly is in relation to trends in the deployment of Islamic capital and Islamic financing. So where I'm sitting in both, the supply and the demand side. I see that the main challenge is on the supply side. There's also always challenge on the demand side, but always the more challenging part or the gap is on the supply side. We need more diversity in terms of asset classes, in terms of strategies, in terms of new parties coming in. So we have to work beyond, the Islamic finance bubble that we have, go outside, create awareness, and bring more parties in, so that all these misconceptions, so that Islamic finance can be on a level playing field. I think there are many stakeholders that need to play a major role: regulators, authorities, centers of excellence, the financial institutions, non-banking financial institutions, corporates, etc., retail. So we all play a big role. And we need to be guided by the overarching Sharia principles. So this is where the Sharia scholars and the Sharia fraternity come into play. So we are not working on different sides. We are working on the same side to develop the industry further. So with that, I would like to address my first question to Dr. Katan. Given the evolution in Islamic finance, how do you see the role of Sharia scholars in supporting the development of Islamic financial markets, especially in emerging markets? Tafadhal.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think the role of Sharia board is very important in Islamic finance worldwide, because this is kind of specialty. And we have really very few people who can understand what is business nowadays and the Islamic or the Sharia side of that business. These people, they should understand many of these knowledge: accounting, background of accounting, law, regulation, in addition to business, finance, and other side of business. This specialty is very rare all over the world, even in Arab countries, even in Far East, wherever. So when we educate these people, their role in the business will be very important. Because if you have any problem in your institution, you will go to that special department: accounting, law, regulation, governance, auditing. So in terms of Sharia, where you'll go, you have to have Sharia board. They will support you. They will give the Sharia opinion on mix of these business. They have all these backgrounds and many of these issues from different sectors: capital market, corporate, whatever it is. It came to these boards and they review their efforts and give their opinion. So these people very important, and their role a big role to encourage Islamic banking and financial institution, as well as other contents of the economy. Nowadays, in some countries, even the governmental bodies, they form their Sharia board. Even in central banks, they have a Sharia board who can give the Sharia opinion in daily business. Again, it's became quite common, even in private sector, away from banking and finance. Families, companies, they now have Sharia boards, and because they need the Sharia opinion. Some of them religious, some of them not religious, some of them Muslims, even non-Muslims. We need to ask, and you may remember that one a day in Europe they said we wanted to bank Islamically. Why they are very attractive to see the way, as Sister Maya said, It's a new tools. So these tools should depend on an opinion. Who gave this opinion? Special people who understand Sharia as well as business. Where you find these people, your business will be, some of our studies show to us, as long as you are following Sharia guidance, your efficiency is raised as well. Because otherwise, I give you just one example. If you spend a long time to produce a new product, at the end the Sharia will say, this is not Sharia compliant. You lose time and efforts and money. So from the beginning, you need to have these kind of boards in your institution.
Thank you, Dr. Katan. I think that's important. And if I may add, it's good to involve your Sharia board or your Sharia advisors or Sharia scholars early on whenever you want to develop a product or a structure or a transaction, to avoid that back and forth and to avoid any misunderstanding in terms of Sharia principles. So the earlier they are given the information, the better, actually. Yeah. So, Akbar, how does using Islamic financial instruments and products help a company enter business areas perceived to be higher risk by conventional finance or conventional banks, in your opinion?
Thank you for the question. It's an interesting question, and maybe just to explain that and to give some context to that from a slightly different example. So I mentioned that Al Rayan Investment is involved in asset management as well, and when we invest in companies, we invest in Sharia-compliant companies. And so a question we get asked, a good question that we get asked, is what is a Sharia-compliant company? And there's two things there's two screens, if you like, that we do. One is the business activities that a company does, which is similar to ethical investing or socially responsible investing. So a company shouldn't be involved in things like weapons or defense or gambling or pornography or interest, etc., etc. But the other aspect of what the screening that is done is to do with balance sheet ratios of a company. And to put them in, there's 2 or 3 balance sheet ratios, they're not complicated, but to put that qualitatively rather than quantitatively is we cannot invest in companies for them to be Sharia compliant, which have excessive leverage, so too much debt. It's not that they can have no debt, but they should not have too much debt. And also, it's not the way that our Sharia advisors and our Sharia scholars interpret it. We shouldn't invest in companies which have too much cash. A lot of the time that cash is invested in conventional banks and generates interest. So what that means is effectively, and there's a reason why I'm talking about asset management to answer Maya's question, is effectively it's a formalized risk management framework to prevent the asset manager or to prevent the investor from investing in companies that are too risky. Because normally an investor will say, oh, don't worry, I'm professional, I know how to handle risk, I can invest in risky companies, I can invest in non-risky companies, there's no problem. But that's unfortunately not how it works, because when there are shocks to the system, they happen very rapidly. Financial crises, by definition, don't give you advance warning. They just happen one day, and if you invested incorrectly, you end up investing in a bank which doesn't exist anymore, or in a company that's gone bankrupt, etc., etc. Talking about so with that said, is that it's a formalized risk management framework. To keep that into context, when companies, when banks or financial institutions, whether it's private equity or an asset manager or anyone else, are engaging with a counterparty which does something which is a bit more risky, a conventional institution who is looking to manage risk, because ultimately what a bank does is really just risk management. I'm lending money to people, but I'm managing the risk. I don't want to lend to entities that are too risky because I'm scared they won't repay me. In Islamic finance, the interesting and very important difference is the concept of risk sharing. risk sharing between the borrower and the lender in the true form of Islamic finance. So when you are risk sharing, you're able to price risk more accurately and get compensated as the lender for this in a better way. And because of the way that a lot of these transactions are structured, you have better security, better collateral, which protects you in case something, protects you as the lender in case something doesn't go right with your customer. So what that effectively enables is that an Islamic entity, or an entity which is lending using Islamic principles, is therefore more tolerant to higher levels of risk from their borrowers, because they're able to share and allocate that risk in a more in a way which is more rewarding. So that, ironically, people think of Islamic finance as boring, as not very innovative, as sometimes backward, as something which, how can something which originated 1500 years ago be cool and innovative? Well, it kind of is, because of the sort of things that I've just talked about. So I think it's a fascinating insight. There are many others, which hopefully will come through in our conversations. But this is actually an interesting point as to why Islamic banks are often able to fund things that a conventional bank may say no to. And just to put my comments into context, I've spent roughly half my career working for an Islamic institution and half my career working for a conventional bank, Deutsche Bank. So I've seen both sides of the story. Thank you.
Thank you, Akbar. I think that's the inherent equitability feature or characteristic of Sharia principles and Islamic financial products. These pre-screening criteria, or the Sharia screening criteria, actually, on the face of it, some may feel that it proves to be challenging, it's restrictive. But recently, I was advising a client of ours, and we were doing a back testing to to reduce the threshold that you've seen so far, 1/3, right? The threshold of leverage threshold, etc. So cash ratio. So 1/3 to 20%, 15%. And 10%, essentially on conventional leverage for equity investment. And interestingly, the IRR of the underlying universe, although it contracts a bit in terms of the size of the universe, but the IRR increases. So in terms of performance, when we put or when we tested the threshold, making it stricter up until 10%, the IRR shot up. So that's a very interesting development, I think, in the market. So for the next question, Mirlan. What are the top 2 requests coming from your clientele asking for new alternative investment instruments? And do you have any specific product or product line that you are keen to develop moving forward?
Спасибо большое за вопрос. Прежде всего, я хотел бы остановиться на результатах широкомасштабного маркетингового исследования, которое провело МФЦА. Результаты этого исследования были презентованы в начале этого года. Исследование было направлено на оценку потенциала рынка исламского финансирования в Казахстане в разрезе конкретных продуктов, в разрезе розничного финансирования, такие продукты, как исламская ипотека, авторассрочка, автофинансирование, рассрочка и так далее. Помимо этого, исследование было посвящено также оценке спроса на исламские депозиты. Что касается инвестиционных продуктов исламских депозитов, то по результатам опроса потенциал рынка новых исламских депозитов составляет 2,8 триллионов тенге. Население готово переходить от традиционных депозитов к исламским в случае наличия на рынке альтернативных инструментов, и такой переход по результатам исследования оценивается еще дополнительно в 924 миллиарда тенге. И вот исходя из данных результатов, отвечая на запросы рынка, в настоящее время мы работаем над разработкой ряда инвестиционных продуктов, ряда финансовых продуктов. Эти продукты находятся на различных стадиях финализации, и мы планируем до конца года эти продукты реализовать и представить их рынку. Спасибо.
Maybe you can also answer the next question. What do you consider as innovation? And what role did it play in the recent development and growth of Islamic financial products? And will this innovation continue? Mirlan.
Вообще, в целом, хотел бы начать свой ответ с самого понимания, что такое инновация в контексте исламских финансов. Вот несколько месяцев назад я изучал миссии и видение 10 ведущих исламских банков в мире, в том числе уважаемый Масраф Аль-Раян. Мне стало интересно, какой миссии придерживаются лидеры рынка исламского финансирования и кем они себя позиционируют в будущем. И как вы думаете, какое слово было наиболее популярным, наиболее часто встречающимся? Это слово «инновация» в различных вариациях. Innovation, innovative. Это слово использовалось 8 раз вот, в миссиях и видениях 10 крупнейших исламских банков в мире. И я задумался, что для нас, как для банка, инновация. И мы пришли к выводу, что инновация – это не только использование диджитал-решений при реализации своих продуктов. Прежде всего, инновация для нас – это предложить рынку продукты, которые не используются или недостаточно широко используются в Казахстане. Как вам известно, современный рынок исламского финансирования предлагает широкий спектр исламских финансовых продуктов и услуг. И наша задача и в части инновационного подхода – это предлагать клиентам те продукты, которые в Казахстане не используются. Это основной посыл в части инноваций. Роль инноваций в современном мире, безусловно. Хочу обратить внимание, что генеральное название нашего форума состоит из 3 слов, и первое слово – это инновация. И если исходить из названия нашего форума, то как раз инновации определяют размер инвестиций и степень влияния того или иного финансового института. Спасибо.
Thank you. I think that's very interesting in relation to how we perceive what innovation is. I agree with your perspective, actually, Mirlan, because innovation, I think, is because Sharia is very rich in terms of contract and principles. So if we can find a solution to bridge the gap within that particular ecosystem, within the legal framework, the tax framework, and that solution is effective and can lead to the achievement of the objective of Sharia, I think that's an innovation. Although this is not usable or workable in other jurisdictions. For instance, right now we see a lot of demand. I see a lot of demand from Islamic investors as well as conventional investors with allocation for Shari'ah-compliant investments. They are looking for alternative assets and alternative strategies. And mainly these assets and strategies are in jurisdiction where there's no Islamic finance infrastructure. So when we talk about sector, yes, this is something that we can screen, something that we can see. And when we look at the financial ratio, so this is where the challenge is, because there's no Islamic bank over there to give them Islamic leverage. So what does it mean? Does it mean that Islamic investors using the typical instrument cannot invest in those jurisdictions, and even the sector is very much Sharia compliant, for instance, infrastructure, right? So we have to find an alternative solution. We have to innovate how Islamic investors go into alternative assets and strategies using an alternative solution. Look into the different Sharia aspects and Sharia contracts to find an alternative solution. So I think that's also an innovation, allowing the development, the further development of the industry into jurisdiction where, you know, there's very little or minimal anything to do with Islamic finance. So I think with that, I will go to the next question for Arman. What do you see are the major challenges in the development of Islamic finance solutions, specifically for the corporate sector? Are these still the same challenges or new ones have emerged? What are the opportunities that may be tapped into?
Thank you for your question, Maya. And I think that there are still old problems that regulatory framework doesn't back Islamic finance in Kazakhstan. Yeah, so I think this year there was huge breakthrough, and it's thanks to AIFC and Medina also that there are some currency regulation was at last signed, yeah, and some of the licenses obtained like tax preferences. So it's only this year in February actually some of the licenses became so same leveling. Yes, they started to have same tax preferences, and the whole regulatory framework here in Kazakhstan, mainly it's coming, and tax system, yeah, it's based on conventional finance, conventional bank, where you can for the coupon interest from the bonds, you can actually take it as decrease your revenue, and it decreases your corporate income tax. And for the sukuk, it's not possible. That's why we don't have a single sukuk in Kazakhstan. Yeah. So, and I think our market is mainly like bank and bond market. Yeah. That's why we everywhere is just we are having a boom in bonds, but there isn't a single sukuk. Why? And if you dig into it, it's that regulatory framework and the tax regime doesn't support it. You cannot, as like, for example, in Qatar or in any other country, even not the Islamic countries, where you can, your special purpose company will have through renting, ijara, and other instruments where it can benefit the same tax like preferences, and when it can deduct, yeah. But here it's just taxed as the same. So what you are having in asset in an ordinary like company, and in that asset you are receiving your rents, ijara or something, and it's taxed. And your expenses are in a different company. So that's why there isn't any single sukuk here. But the demand is huge. Why I know it? Because so first we started, like we established 2 years ago like a fund, and it was demand driven. Yeah, it's the funds that we have, it's demand driven, where people said, I want to invest my money in a halal way. In Kazakhstan, people are like, of course, I mean, they are asking not only like for halal food, but also halal finance. Yes, Shari'ah-compliant finance, and they want their money also be invested in a halal way. And the next demand was that this SME, yes, small and medium enterprises, also they wanna funding which can share the risks, yeah. But here again, those who will insert capital and provide funding, they need to have the same like tax preferences as here. For example, we have crowdfundings and it's booming, where people directly can finance the small and medium enterprises. But again, none of them is Islam. They tried, yeah, but again, the tax is very important. When you are taking it into consideration, it's making for example, if you are an investor, your profit less, and if you are a borrower, your money is really expensive. So I think did I answer your question? The main thing is the regulatory framework, that it's not backing, yeah, and only in this haven, like in Astana International Financial Center, we can pilot regime and test something so that because the regulator here, AFSA, can hear and answer to these demands. And so these are the main things. And just for the everyone to understand, there are of course different levels of stages of development for Islamic finance. And here in Kazakhstan, to be honest, we are in some kind of, remember, Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Abyssinian pilgrimage period, where there are Muslims that want to practice, but so the ruling does not back it. So it's something like there we are still. So if we divide it into stages. Thank you.
Thanks, Arman. Yeah, that would be the first migration, right, of the companion to Abyssinia. But inshallah, Kazakhstan will be like Medina soon, inshallah, with all the opportunities. And I think you raised a very valid point where we have to have an ecosystem or a framework where conventional finance and Islamic finance can be on a level playing field. I think that is very important, and it's good to know that the new regulation have passed in February. You mentioned, so I think this opens up and can open up a lot of opportunities, not just for Sukuk but for other products. So Mabruk to the team. Madina, I know you work hard for this, so this is a very, very encouraging, I think, a development. And if we can look into developing the domestic market first, so Islamic finance within the domestic market, show many, many success stories, I think this will open up more FDIs and more foreign players to come into Kazakhstan as the other markets are slowly digressing. I think this is a good time, inshallah, to develop the market over here, right? So for the next question, Akbar, the latest development in sustainable financing landscape within the Shariah contract. So why are clients demanding sustainable investments and products? And then how should businesses define their strategies to obtain sustainable financing, as well as how can banks support companies with sustainable finance options? So we're looking at the holistic point of view. What are your thoughts?
Thank you. There's a lot of questions in that. I'll try and break that down a bit. So sustainable, the phrase sustainable finance, the concept of sustainable finance is also it seems like a trendy thing these days. But interestingly enough, there's a lot of overlap between what is currently called sustainable finance and what is essentially the approach that Sharia has. So if you think of ESG, which is a term that's used a lot, and ESG, environmental, social, and governance. So there's a significant overlap between this and what would be called sustainable finance, and to be honest, the approach that Sharia has. A lot of the S in the social aspect, the S is taken into account. The G, which is the governance, is taken into account as well. But to answer your question more directly, why is it that there is a demand for this? Is because the banks' customers are asking for sustainable financing, sustainable financial solutions, because their customers in turn want the company to be operating in this way, and it's good for business. It's not just because your client wants you to behave in a certain way; it's also good for business. So again, let me use it say that in a different way. Companies will tell you how wonderful the ESG credentials are. And what they do, in one of the ways to show the E is how environmentally friendly they are. What that effectively means is how they're using less energy. Clearly, this is good for business. If you're using less energy, you save costs. If you're using less energy, you're using renewables, you're using other aspects. So not only is it good for your ESG credentials, it's actually good for business. So the sustainable aspect it's not just for the sake of it, it's actually good for the clients are wanting it, and it's also good for business. The other aspect, which is I think important when you're talking about sustainable financing, is there's a lot of concept or a lot of discussion, I should say, in Islamic finance about a circular economy. Circular economy is essentially jargon, or essentially a way of describing the fact that there is a synergy between, so the financing and banks and institutions which provide funding are not completely separate and independent of the rest of the economy. They, as I mentioned earlier, they work together. There is sharing of risk. They are not. It's not just a transactional relationship; it's a partnership. And interestingly, one of the ways that one of the reasons after the Second World War that Germany was able to recover from basically devastation is that the banks in Germany at the time became partners with their companies. So a lot of the banks became board members of the companies they were providing financing to. So instead of saying, here's a 1-year loan, 2-year loan, 3-year loan, they actually joined that journey with the company and gave 5, 10, 15-year financing and worked with the company till they recovered. That's a partnership, as opposed to, I gave you a 2-year loan, 2 years are up, where's the money? No money, you've defaulted, I'll take you to court. That's a transactional relationship, and it's not one that is that conducive to how Islamic financing works. So I mean, I've talked. It's a very large topic, but hopefully I've picked up a few strands, Maya.
Yeah. Thanks very much. I think this is also sustainability. ESG is also the area where conventional finance and Islamic finance converge. So we are talking more about similarities between these two rather than the differences. So next, Fahim, if I can have your thoughts on what role do you envision Islamic capital market playing in promoting Central Asia as an emerging market for Islamic investments, and which party should be driving this agenda? Is it the sovereign or the corporates?
It was music to ear to listen to Arman about the taxation issues and others. So I think as a rater, the development of the local debt markets is one of the backbones to the economy, and that is what we strive for. For example, if you see Bangladesh, Iran, where we have put in the rating agencies in Pakistan, we have done a lot of work for the development of the local market as hubs. The same thing goes with the Islamic rating agency, where now we are working in 17 jurisdictions. So it's a long journey, and I think for my studies, if you look at the economies here, Kazakhstan is very well placed. The legal system here where we are sitting, and the assurances and the legal framework, barring few of the issues which should be addressed quickly maybe, I think this is one of the best places. Like Turkey is now trying to put up a hub Dubai is trying to had put up a hub. Malaysia was a hub with $300 billion sukuk market, and it's a 50% what you call the economy of the Islamic finance is part of the full economy. So I think Kazakhstan. Why we are here as Islamic International Rating Agency to work with the regulators and to create an ecosystem where because the ratings play a very important role for the transparency, for the transactions like Sukuk where Brother Akbar mentioned. See, the Islamic finance is very simple. It is no risk, no gain. Why? I just asked myself a question, and maybe I will put to the audience, why do you invest in equity? You don't have any, it's a no risk, no gain. I mean, like equity, you take a risk and you expect a gain. So it is just like what we are trying to do in Islamic finance, asset-backed, asset-based. So I think if you look at the asset-backed, the biggest market is the mortgage finance. It's all asset-backed, $8 trillion market. So why not us, the Islamic finance, with all these Sharia rulings and ecosystem. We have the good standards now, AIFE. IFE is a good solutions like Basel. So I think we are on a right track for this here in this area to build up AIFC for a good future maybe, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thanks, Fahim. I'm with you. Arman, how can technology address the gaps in Islamic finance industry, such as excessive liquidity, limited financial inclusivity, weak integration with global financial markets, frail product development, to name a few, in order to better serve the corporate or the SME segment of the market?
Yeah, actually, previously when I was answering your question, I think everything was negative a little bit. Here, I think I try to be more positive and tell about the positive sides. Here, the technology adoption is really good. Like I'm traveling a lot of countries, and what I see that here. The technological solutions like Kaspi that we have here and other banks applications are much more developed actually than in other countries. For example, here in Kazakhstan no one knows about what's banking checks. We leapfrogged that stage. So of course, banking system came to us a little bit later after our independence. So we leapfrogged some, I think, 40 years. And since I think the average age of our population is 32 in Kazakhstan, very young country. So a lot of opportunities, and which means that the adoption of anything new and technology is very fast. If something is really user-friendly technology, it can be easily adopted very fast. So it gives really huge opportunities for the players who started to come and enter after, as I said, AIC and Medina had some laws, regulatory things passed in February. So I think those who started to obtain, we already know that some started to obtain providing Islamic finance, and I with my partner also, we actually applied for this license, and we hope to be a kind of help to in marketing, in distribution, and in providing funding to both sides, to clients to obtain in installments, and for the business to provide finance, and with and managing restricted investment accounts Yeah, so these things was just passed in February, and I know that already I think recently obtained this license. So these licenses and these things can be a leapfrog to Kazakhstan to mass adoption of these products. Yeah, so actually it's like kind of BNPL. Yeah, if it's in short, but when you are giving the same like level playing to the fintech in Islamic fintech, I think it's really game changer. And I know that there are like several already crowdfundings also are right now trying to obtain the same tax preferences. Yeah. So I think, yeah, technology could help us a lot, and due to young population and to my colleagues here, especially Akbar, I will tell that if like big players like your financial institution will enter into Kazakhstan, and I know that Qatar right now is entering a lot. They obtained like our largest mobile telecom, one of the banks was purchased. So, and this happened very recently, a few months ago, and I think telecom will be closed in a year, which means like when you have telecom data and you have bank, and Qatar can do a lot here. And since the regulatory framework was after 30 years just now actually in place for you to conquer the market, and fintech can help you in that, because the population is young, which can adopt it fast.
Thank you, Arman. 32 years average age, yeah? Okay, I think if I want to feel young, I need to come to Kazakhstan. That's very good. Okay, and yes, I think technology is one way to ensure accessibility, ease of accessibility. And the thing about Sharia is we are neutral in terms of technology. So that's one challenge being put aside. So Dr. Katan, you've heard about the challenges. You've heard about the potential opportunity in the markets, such as in emerging markets such as Kazakhstan, and what are the hopes and aspirations of the market over here. What's also important is, as we innovate, as we bring in new products, new ways of doing business in a Shari'ah-compliant manner, the implementation of those products are key, because we have to ensure end-to-end Shari'ah compliance, right? So in your opinion, who should drive Shari'ah compliance and governance? Is it the Shari'ah department, or Shari'ah scholars, or regulators, auditors, etc.? Many are expecting Shari'ah scholars to do more to ensure Shari'ah governance. Do you agree? And what aspects should the Shari'ah fraternity focus on to ensure a safe balance between Shari'ah compliance and innovation?
I think all of these people, they are responsible for the governance. Sharia scholar, but mainly the Sharia scholar as well as regulators. In fact, both of them, they are very important to do so. If I wanted to speak about this lovely country, as far as I know, this is my first visit, I got some information about it. There is effective response from the regulators, as we saw this regulation just being raised a few months back. But from the other side, is there really demand from the market? As far as I know, it's a weak demand, especially from both individuals and corporation. There is big appetite for such Islamic finance, but it should be a real study, fieldwork studies, mentioning that how big this demand, because many other experts in different countries, it showed that the big demand, the strong demand, changed the mind of regulators. So if there is a real demand, if you wanted to tell me there's a weak demand in this country, let's go back to see why. In short, I think, maybe I'm wrong, there is no enough information and awareness of what is Islamic finance. And this is not a mistake, because it's still new information for many other Islamic countries. It's not a fault of this country, no. But we should start. This is, I think, the role of IFC today, such as training courses, workshops, forums, conferences, even in universities, please. Start to put a subject about Islamic finance, Islamic banking, Islamic economy, what is Islamic insurance, takaful, because you need these people to build a strong demand. At that stage, everybody will listen to you. Corporate, regulators, government, public sector, everybody. Third sector, if you are aware, third sector, everybody will listen to you because there is a real demand. So I think this should be start to move forward with the point is the awareness. Yes.
So just to the excellent points from the doctor and maybe free advertising for the AIFC, because we should, given they've organized this. There was a study published in the first quarter of this year precisely about the demand for Sharia products in Kazakhstan, with a lot of discussions with a wide cross-section of the potential consumers, from individuals through to corporates through to others. And there is a very significant pent-up demand based on that study in the country. And Medina's name has come up throughout this session, and she's a big champion and an amazing resource to have within the AFC. But the team put together this engaged external provider. They did the study, so the demand is there. It's just about ironing out the regulatory situations, as there is globally. It's about ensuring that the service providers are in sync. But ultimately, what drives these things forward is if there is demand, if there is money to be made from servicing this customer, then service providers will come and seek to capitalize on that. So I think Kazakhstan has all the ingredients, and this platform at the AFC allows that to be a springboard.
Thank you, Dr. Katan and Akbar. We have just enough time for 2 questions. Okay, the gentleman, yeah, your hand went up first. Please.
Good day. My name is Alex, and I'm founder and management partner of IT company with more than 200 developers. And my question will be about innovation, and not about corporate sector, big one as I can read here, but about medium, small and private sector. How do you think such product as Neobank, bank without branches, bank and mobile application, will be attractive in Islamic finance? And what is the potential of such solution for Islamic finance and for customers? Thank you.
Okay, Fahim.
This is I think you are talking about a digital bank, right? Of the Islamic digital bank. We are just rating one of the first digital banks in Pakistan. They are going to compete with the very big, like Mizan Bank, and the big names. I think they have a very good strategy for this digital banking, where they say that they will go out and they have some customer base, and they will start attracting the deposits on a very what you call risk sharing basis. And there is an ecosystem where you can attract not maybe in the cities, but they have made their what you call shops, like small shops, where they're enabling their IT, what you call through the mobiles, in the far-flung areas where I think the religion is more practiced. So I think the big banks, they don't want to go into villages because of the cost. And I think when we found out this, what you call their plan, it looks very attractive right now, but they have a guarantee from their parent for next 3 years because they may lose their equity. But I think after 4 or 5 years, what their plan is getting into villages, far-flung areas, so I mean, you have a very good business plan then. That is what, right now, what we are looking at.
Oh no. Okay, hands down. 1, 2, 3.
I'm lucky to ask the question.
All right.
Thank you very much to this team panel. And a separate thank you to Medina for setting up this wonderful session. I think here in the hall, a lot of people, I think everyone sitting in this hall is very enthusiastic about Islamic finance in Kazakhstan. So the question is, just before I ask the question from the panel, I'd like to set up some statistics. As of 1st of May 2024, this year, actually we have 21 banks in Kazakhstan. In Kazakhstan, we have a unique situation. We have 2 regulators. We have a national bank and we have a AIFC. So we have 21 banks under the national bank and 1 Islamic bank under the AIFC. So according to the statistic as of May this year, the credit portfolio of these 21 banks under the national bank, the halal part was only 0.42% within the banking system. So 99.6% were conventional money, riba-based money. The Alif Islamic Bank was not part of it because there was no statistics, unfortunately. So the real situation in the market is like this, that we, as a customers, we don't have a halal alternative. Let's say we don't have a halal mortgage, you cannot find a halal car financing, etc., etc. So, and in order to develop the market, so the question is, can we find a balance between Sharia, the classical Sharia view, and the issue of developing the market? Can we set up a transition period so that we can give the chance to the market to develop and adapt some maybe debatable Sharia concepts so that to give a chance for the market to develop and then to clear up the market from the Sharia point of view? So I'm asking the panel, what do they think about that? Is it possible, and can we find a solution?
Vinod Katan.
In short, yes. Many alternatives you have. And maybe this is the role of the regulators. That's it, to start. It's been implemented somewhere else, many places, many countries, one of them Malaysia. You can start with products within the conventional banks to test the market, to test the product, to get feedback. Later you have another alternatives, windows, not necessarily full-fledged. For a certain period of time, you can allow windows, i.e. they provide Sharia products. And there is such many conditions and regulation from Sharia point of view to have such a window within the framework of conventional banks. And I think the best case to have fully-fledged Islamic. It will take time. You have to test the market. You have to train people. It's easy to build a bank. From where you get the people? You don't anybody understand how to deal Islamic. I'm not talking about the customers, employees. It's one of the critical issue everywhere in Islamic banking and finance worldwide. So you have to train these people. So it should be a strategic plan. Could be long, mid to long. But at the end of the day, at that stage, last stage, you may allow fully-fledged Islamic banks. Yes.
If I can probably add to that. Well, actually, the more mature markets started somewhere. They started as an emerging market. They started with a framework that's not conducive. So, as Dr. Katan mentioned, it's always a transition period. It's always, we are from here to here. We are still at the compliance stage. We are not reaching the purity stage. So there are certain contracts, certain products that can be implemented first before the others. So I think it's very important to look into the actual ecosystem, the framework, the regime, and see which spectrum within the industry can work first before we go to the next stage. So this is where all the stakeholders need to come into play and bring in the Sharia fraternity. I think this is the mindset, what can be done, what cannot be done. And the good thing about, I think in Kazakhstan, in AIFC, is you have a regulator that listens, right now. So you have seen, it may take a while, but you have seen certain development. So as long as there is development, I think there's potential and opportunity. Merlan, you wanted to say something?
Да, я хотел бы добавить к вопросу. Действительно, в Казахстане сложилась определенная диспропорция на рынке исламского финансирования. С одной стороны, это повышенный спрос на исламские финансовые продукты. Опять же, возвращаясь к результатам исследования, более 2 миллионов человек в Казахстане – это практикующие мусульмане. То есть практикующие мусульмане – это те люди, которые строго следуют религиозным предписаниям, в том числе и в области исламского финансирования. С другой стороны, это ограниченное предложение. В Казахстане всего 2 исламских банка и 2 исламские финансовые компании. 1 исламский банк на территории МФЦ. И, как уже сказал спикер, то, что доля, она остается незначительной, всего 0,4% от всего объема активов банковского сектора. Что, на наш взгляд, можно сделать для того, чтобы сократить эту диспропорцию? На наш взгляд, и вот сейчас очень часто подчеркивалось, что в МФЦ создана хорошая регуляторная база, что наблюдается определенный бум исламского финансирования на МФЦ. И мне кажется, следующим шагом должно стать поддержка МФЦ в части предоставления возможности участникам МФЦ участвовать в государственных программах поддержки предпринимательства и населения. Сейчас можно назвать только 2 программы, в которых наблюдается исламский компонент, это исламский лизинг, но эти программы не предполагают собой участие в них резидентов МФЦ. И, на наш взгляд, участие резидентов МФЦ в этих программах, оно позволит вовлечь в экономический оборот ту часть населения, которая сейчас отрезана от финансового сектора ввиду религиозных соображений. А это, в свою очередь, приведет к росту деловой активности, к росту налоговых поступлений в бюджет, поддержке и созданию новых рабочих мест, ну и, в конце концов, снижению социальной напряженности в Казахстане. Спасибо.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we've overshot our time. So I would like to express my deepest appreciation to my learned colleagues, the esteemed panelists, and the organizer. So I think, as a takeaway, there's a lot to do to prep the industry here in Kazakhstan to be accessible to Islamic finance products and Sharia principles. So I think there's a lot of other dialogues that we need to listen to. I think next one is your session. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time and your questions. Assalamu alaikum.
Благодарим наших спикеров.